Welcome to the Life's Worth Living podcast. I'm your host, John Gossett, and we're grateful to have you back for another week of the podcast. And tonight's podcast is brought to you by GTM Builders. GTM Builders is Tooele County's premier home builder. We couldn't make this possible without them. If you're in the market for a new home, looking at building, go visit one of their 4 model homes in Tooele County. Tonight's episode is brought to you by A. Warner Homes Real Estate. If you're in the market for buying or selling your home, reach out to A. Warner Homes Real Estate. They've got a special if you mention this podcast and you're a veteran or a first responder, they will pay for your appraisal and your home inspection. So be sure and remember that if you're in the market. Reach out to A. Warner Homes Real Estate at 801-867-5078. So super excited that we are doing the podcast tonight. You can tell we are not in GTM's model home. We happen to be in Tooele City Hall, and we are with the new 2020 royalty for Tooele City. And tonight I've got a co-host, my friend Stacy Smart, with the Communities That Care at Tooele City. So thanks for being with me, Stacy, and thanks, ladies, for being here. So, I guess you all wonder why I've invited you today. So I want to kind of go around and get to know you guys a little bit. So Ella Rose Leonelli, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're the new Miss Tooele for 2020.
Yes, I am. I was a senior this last year, so I graduated with the graduating class of 2020 along with COVID-19. Along with that, I've grown up on a farm. I've been involved in a lot throughout high school. I worked hard to keep my grades up. I really care about education, and I really care about people feeling involved and included.
Perfect. And you've lived in Tooele your whole life?
Yes, I have.
Right on. I like it. So, you've got 2 attendants, and you've got Eden Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about you. I recognized your last name.
Yes, my sister was actually Miss Tooele City a couple of years back, so it's been fun kind of seeing the same experience that she went through, and it's just been a lot of fun.
So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, currently I'm just working as a dental assistant at Little Mountain Dental, and I'm planning to go to Dixie State either this fall or spring. We'll see how everything pans out, but yeah, I'm just getting ready to go to school. But
Well, and I heard Dixie is getting ready to open their doors back up in August, so that'll be fun. I had a little in down there to find that out, so that's cool. And you've lived in Tooele your whole life?
I moved here when I was in the 3rd grade. But
Well, that counts.
yeah, pretty much my whole life.
And we've got another attendant, Sunny Norman. So, Sunny, tell us about you.
So I was also just a senior, except in college. Just graduated with a degree in violin performance from a school in Boston called New England Conservatory. And I have also pretty much lived in Tooele my whole life, since I was 6.
So was that a shocker going to Boston?
Yes, it was.
It's a little different.
There's
right?
no mountains.
There's no mountains, no. And we actually have listeners in Boston, believe it or not. So, hey.
Oh, cool.
Well, thanks for being here tonight. I'm really excited for this podcast and to kind of get to know you guys a little bit more. I want to introduce Stacy Smart. So, Stacy.
Hello.
Pretend you don't know me. Tell me a little bit about you.
So I'm Stacy Smart, and I'm the supervisor for Communities That Care. And I have worked here for 7 years, 7.5, and been the supervisor for 2 years now.
And how do you like it?
I love it. I love being involved with the community. I love being here with the girls. It's really fun to be a part of the pageant. So during the summertime, we have a little bit of downtime, and we were asked to help with the pageant, and we've done it for about 8 years now, I think, and it's fun. It's fun to get to know these girls and get to know their personalities and hang out with them as they shine throughout our community.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have had lots of interactions with the past royalty, and so that's really kind of a fun thing. I like living in a town this size, and you get to know everybody, and so that's really fun. So tell us, Stacy, a little bit about the CTC, or the Communities That Care, because there's a lot of people that may or may not be familiar with it. Tell us what you do.
Right, I would love to tell you about Communities That Care. So Communities That Care became involved with Tooele City about 17 years ago. Time goes by really fast. And we are so grateful to be a part of this community, and we're so grateful for the mayor and the city council for putting us on a line item in the budget. It means a lot to us. And so what we do with Communities that Care is that we are involved in prevention, and we're involved with the youth of the city. And we, every year or every other year, the youth take a survey called the SHARP survey. And the SHARP survey gives us a little glimpse into their life and what is it like for them. What does substance abuse look like for them? What does family conflict look like for them? And they go through this, it's a pretty long, lengthy SHARP survey that they do, but it gives us a glimpse of what's going on in the city. And then we have a community assessment work group that actually Ella Rose's mom is the head of that committee. And we take it to that committee and we pour through that data. And we look to see what our risk factors are, what our protective factors are, and where we need to increase those protective factors. And so we go through all of that and we come up with some prioritized risk factors that we need to focus on. And the last time that we went through this, we came up with low commitment to school, low neighborhood attachment, family conflict, and depressive factors and suicidality. And we all know that depressive factors and suicidality have really increased in the last few years. And so we are trying our best to work with that and find out what's going on with all of our youth today. And not only our youth, but the adults in our community as well. And that's where we enjoy working with Life's Worth Living. We do question, persuade, refer, our suicide prevention training, and I get to work with John on that and enjoy bringing those trainings to other people to help bring other people some hope. And so with low commitment to school, we work on with the school district. That's the beauty of what we do, is that we are able to work with agencies throughout the city. We love working with the Tooele County School District. We work with the health department. We work with Life's Worth Living. We work with several agencies throughout the city. And so our low commitment to school, we work with the school district and we help with their second step program. And our low neighborhood attachment, we're actually working with the mayor on let's see, what's it called? Let me think. Our Take Pride Tooele Neighborhood Initiative is what we have come up with that and for that. And so we're just starting that one. We're working on that. And Guiding Good Choices helps us with our family conflict risk factor that we have, and we offer that to all of our families throughout the city. And it's a wonderful, wonderful parenting workshop. I haven't met anybody yet that doesn't enjoy it when they start doing it. It's a 5-week process, and it's just so good, and we learn from each other, and I think that's what I like the most, is that we learn from each other. And then our depressive factors and our suicidality, and we do teach the QPR suicide prevention training, but we've also been talking, and I know we've talked with John and we've talked with Marianne Oborn at the school district, and we've talked about what is it that we're missing with the mark. And we have come to actually realize that it is resiliency. And what is resiliency? And what is that in our youth? And how do we teach resiliency? Can we teach resiliency? And so a definition of resiliency is just basically the capacity to recover from a setback, a tough part of life, something that's kind of put you backwards through difficulties. And so what does that look like? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, resiliency with these girls, because right now they are sky high and enjoying what they're doing, and they've just been picked as our royalty, and it's a very exciting honor for them. But I'm willing to bet that they've had some times where they've had to look at who they are and what they are and how they're going to get through some hard times. And definitely COVID-19 has given us all something to think about.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been a year like no other year. I mean, I I was saying to somebody yesterday, just wow, you look at this year like in review, and who would have thought? You know, at the end
We
of
thought the Australia fires were
yeah,
going to be the highlight of the year.
right. No, I forgot that Australia had any fires. That's how it's been. It's been nuts. So yeah, totally. So resilience is huge because as humans, we have the capability to snap back and to kind of roll with the punches, so to speak. And in your guys' situation with everything, you have been involved in so much of it that you really know inside and out what resilience is about. Just dealing with this past, whether you're in college or high school, it's been wild. It's been a wild ride, and it's not over yet, right? So it's going to be a bit.
Yeah.
Well, so let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Do you want to kind of go on?
So we're just going to take a question, and John and I will kind of bounce back and forth, but we'll ask the question and then give each of you a chance to answer that question. And so feel free to answer it the best way you know how and take the time that you want. So the first question, we'll start with Ella Rose first, is how do you deal with setbacks? What is your way of dealing with and having that coping mechanism to deal with setbacks?
One thing that I've found that really helps me when I've had a setback or I didn't make something that I wanted was I like to go for a run and just blast music through my headphones. It gives me a chance to really go through the motions of, oh, I'm sad, I have to do something about it. And so it really helps me just figure out what I'm doing and gives me a minute to breathe and not have to focus on it. I can just run, and then come back home and figure out what the next step is.
That's good. Yeah, I think that physical activity really helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sunny, same question. How do you deal with setbacks?
One of the things I usually do to deal with setbacks is that I actually have a prior mindset. So I just tell myself, oh, like, I need to be able to feel bad things to be able to really fully enjoy the good. And I just keep that in mind and I know that something good will be coming.
That's really good. And that's a lot with the hope. We always talk about hope when we're talking about that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with what Sunny said. I feel like just so often when we're going through something, you need to just take a step back and look at the situation because oftentimes smaller things just are really big to us. So something that I've, like throughout what I've struggled with, I've just had to take a step back and look at what's going on, and normally it's short term, and it's easier said than done, but I think you need to look at the positive through everything as best as you can. And because I think if you're looking at the negatives of all the situation, then it's not going to help get any better. But I'm a strong believer in looking at the glass half full.
For sure.
That is a
Always.
good thing. Yeah. All right.
What about you, Stacy?
How do I deal with setbacks? It's interesting. I'll tell you, I was talking to my daughter one time and I asked her, I said, we talked about how is she going to deal with setbacks in her life. And she said, Mom, I'll just cry my eyes out, go to sleep, and then wake up the next day and move forward. And I thought, okay, that works. That'll be good. I've noticed with me, the way I deal with setbacks is I do have to keep that positive outlook on things. And I also have to make sure that I get the physical part of it. Like the answers that you guys have given are really what I use too. And then I always have to remember, am I eating good? Am I getting the sleep I need? And is my outlook, is it okay? And I think just all of that together, that's just, I don't know, things we've talked about this a little bit about how for some people it rolls off of them very, very easy. I want to knock on wood when I say this, but I think I'm a pretty resilient person and things roll off of me pretty easy. So I'm just gonna knock on wood and hope that keeps happening.
You know, it reminded me of a story that a friend of mine actually had told about his grandson. For those of you that aren't in Tooele County, we have a really beautiful mountain, and it's Deseret Peak. And there's a really beautiful hike that goes up there. And my friend said, I took my grandson, and he was going to hike up to the peak, and he was not a hiker. He was a gamer. He wanted to kind of be home with his video games. You know, if they had a video game that would hike to the peak, then he wouldn't have to do it. And, you know, wasn't his gig. And he said as he started out, he kept having these little setbacks. You know, his feet hurt. He was tired. He was hungry. You know, whatever the things were. And so the grandfather said, we started to play this trick where he'd tell me, I'm not going to make it. There's no way I'm going to make it to Deseret Peak. And so he'd say, well, look ahead up to that next grove of quaking aspen. And I want you to pick out an aspen and just look at that aspen. And let's just make it to there, and then we'll talk about it. And so he'd walk to that aspen and get to there. And he says a few times in those little short-term, you know, stretches of the hike, the boy's like, there's no way, Grandpa, I'm not going to make it. I just got to go back. There's no way I'm going to make it to the peak. And this happened a few times, and he said, but every time we just set our goal on that next, you know, thing that we could reach, we would make it to it, and we would make it to it. And ultimately, by the end of that evening, they had made it all the way to Deseret Peak. And this little boy said, I never thought I'd ever get here, you know, and how proud he was. And going down, it was a whole different thing because, boy, he was on the top of the world, literally. I mean, he had just made it up there. And I think that's the same thing with setbacks. You have to have that goal, that long-distance goal of what you're going to achieve. And I think one awesome thing to just keep that focus on what you want, and you can get through it. So, no, I loved all of those answers. So, you ready for the hard questions? We gave Stacey the easy one. Here's a tough one for you. Well, let's go in that same order again, if that's all right. So, how do you cope with pressure? Now,
You might be feeling pressure right now.
I was going to say, you've
How are you
experienced pressure and going through this pageant and different things and challenges in life, so you've got the answers.
So, one way that I like to deal with pressure is I'll talk to somebody about it. I'll talk to my mom or I'll talk to one of my friends and I'll just say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing. And when they just listen, it helps me just think through what I'm going to do next, what the next step is for me, and how I can be positive about the situation. And how I can, in the end, if it turns out well or doesn't, I can laugh it off and just say, well, I tried my hardest and I did what I needed to do. So I think a big part of it for dealing with pressure for me is just talking to people and having them listen and just working it through that way.
I love it.
One thing I do with pressure is starting something. I've found out that starting is a huge superpower because once you're able to start something, you're able to just like get in a groove and continue doing something. So if I'm in a really hard situation, I usually try to problem solve to find a way to get out or just make things better. And I just like take one step at a time because that's sometimes as far as you can see.
Yeah, I love it.
Something that I like to do is as for the pageant, there was a lot of pressure on us. I think I just like to focus on the things that I know I can control. So like for the pageant, we had to give a little speech, so I knew I was going to practice that so I could do the best that I could, or practice my talent, practice interview, but I wasn't going to stress about the outcome because I couldn't control what the judges are thinking. And that's just what I like to do is, not worry about the things that you can't control because that's just going to add so much stress that it's useless. There's no point. So
Totally. I agree with all of you. I think those are really good answers. What do you got, Stacey?
I completely agree, and it was interesting because Eden started talking, and it was like exactly what was going through my head.
Yeah.
Is that for me, when I'm feeling that pressure, I just have to focus on here and now. I can't focus on what I can't control, just like you're saying, and I just have to focus on my goal, baby steps, and give it some time. And sometimes I'll get too too worried about something, and I think, no, just bring it back. I can't worry about that. There's nothing I can do about it. And so I just focus on what I have right in front of me at the time.
Yeah, it's a huge waste of energy when you're working on something that is totally out of your control. You know, when I asked that question, and this is the first time I've read the questions, not teasing, but when I read that question, the first thing that came to mind is for those of you that are just listening to the podcast, you can't see these beautiful crowns that these ladies are wearing. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can, but I was thinking about dealing with pressure, and what does pressure make? Diamonds, right? And so you go through the pressure, and you could relate this to the pageant itself. You guys have gone through a lot of pressure, but man, it showed your beauty. It showed what you stand for and everything about each of you. And like the diamond, you've gone through that I don't know what you would call it, but through that transition to
Refiner's fire.
Yeah, to become like a diamond. So way cool. Way proud of all of you for what you've done too. So
Yes. All right. So tell us about a time when you had to deal with a major crisis or a setback or something that was really hard in your life. How did you deal with that?
So, one of the obvious things for me has been graduating with COVID, being a senior in high school. You miss out on a lot. I didn't get to perform at vocal solo and ensemble. I didn't get to have my prom. I didn't get that final goodbye with all my friends, a graduation party, dinner. But I think that sitting down and talking with my parents and them saying, you know, we will do whatever you want to help you. We want you to have fun this senior year. Like, I know it's not going to be the same, but we can as a family go do stuff. And I think just having that support really helped me through that. Really having people who wanted to be there for me was really important, and it helped me get through that really difficult time of not having as many opportunities as I thought. But generally speaking, I think that it was a great experience for me to have so young, because there's probably not, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, there's not going to be another global pandemic like this for a while. And I think it's really cool that we get to be the ones that are living through it right now. As much as it may be affecting our lives in the negative, it's cool to look for the positive in it.
It's good that you look at the positive side of that, because that makes it so much better. And I think you're right, we all have learned. And it was an interesting time for all the seniors to go through that. That was hard. That was really hard.
Oh yeah.
You've waited all your whole life to have this big moment, and it was taken away. And so kudos to your class for taking it like champs. It was really great. All right, Sunny.
One really hard thing actually happened to me just last summer. It hasn't been a complete year yet, but last summer, one of my favorite cousins, we'd always hang out, he committed suicide. And it was a huge shock to the whole family, because he was so popular. He was like one of the most popular kids at BYU. Like, everyone knew him, and he just had so much going for him. He was like great at bowling, at soccer, so many things. And so we heard that he had committed suicide, and it was just impossible to believe. So, you know, we're getting over that, and I ended up going to one of my summer music festivals where I do tons of performances. And, you know, I was still trying to get over it there. You know, I'd still like sometimes cry, you know, it was really hard to get over. And while I was at that festival, his sister, who I happened to live with in Indiana for a year, his sister, so my other cousin, she got hit by a semi-truck. You know, parked car, her and her twin 1-year-old daughters died. And it was so hard. It was unbelievable, because we were trying to get out of this funk, you know, and then you think that you see a way through, but then all of a sudden it gets blocked, and then there's no way through, you know, and you realize, wow, anything can happen. Like, any bad thing can just like become compounded. But, you know, it took a while to get over that. But coming out of it, I realized how important it is to be able to not just have month perspective, but a life perspective, you know, to be able to realize like how many good things you're able to accomplish within your life, how many people you're able to help, you know, and that just like makes it worth it. Just like do something to help others whenever you're feeling terrible.
Sorry, forgive me if I get emotional, but so something that I went through was I struggled with an eating disorder throughout all of my high school years. Sorry, didn't nervous. It's coming on extra strong, but I think one of the things I like to live by is grow through what you go through. And I don't tell many people that I struggled with that because I don't want that to define me, and I don't want them to think of me as that girl. But I'd rather have the way that I got myself out of that define me. When I feel like I hit my rock bottom, I decided that I needed to get help and that it was not going to get better unless I reached out. And so I told my mom, and that was just a really hard night because I'm so close with her, and she was so shocked that I had been, going through this by myself, and it just really, she was the answer to my prayers. So she gave me the best advice, which was don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to a friend. And that just changed my whole outlook on so many different things. And so instead of picking myself apart when I was looking at myself in the mirror, or if I just feel like maybe I was awkward in a situation, I was just trying to, you would never tell your friend, oh, you sounded so stupid back there, or you never tell them, you look really fat today, so just making those little changes and telling myself, oh, I like your hair, or, and it did feel silly at times, and I didn't believe it all the time, but eventually I did, and it's so strange how just that small change rewired my brain, and I just know that I would not be able to be here, talking about this and having a positive outlook on life, or just, being a positive person in general if I hadn't made that change. And so that is something that has been really hard for me, and I do struggle with it sometimes, but I just know that it's going to be okay because I have a support system and I have a new outlook on life, and so that's really helped me.
That's awesome.
That's really good. Thanks for sharing too. I know that it's hard when it starts those waterworks going, but it's a really bold thing to do, and it really touches other people's hearts, because you know that there's a lot of people going through hard things, and you don't know, you would never think that you're going through those hard things. And I think that's one thing that I've learned in my job a lot, is that we don't know what it's like to go through, we don't know what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes, and so that we should never judge people because of that. And I think that is a part of resilience too, is that we need to not judge other people.
Well, those were, you look at what you guys have gone through and where you're at today, and I think that says a lot about each of you, for sure. So, I'm not going to ask you anything that's going to make you cry, so. That was Stacy's fault. That was all Stacy.
It's okay, I cried at everything, so. Coco, Frozen 2, I was a mess.
Let me see what's up.
I think it's okay to show emotion. I think it's who we are.
Stacy's seen me cry 100 times. So.
Well, and I do my fair share of it. So I think it's okay.
So, thinking about what you've been through and what you've gone through in life, now that you're kind of at the top of your game, so to speak, you guys just rocked it out and took this pageant, and we're so proud of you as a city to have people like you that represent us. And so, tell me, you're talking about resiliency and some of those questions that we've asked you. What advice would you give somebody else, a peer or somebody else, as you recognize that they're going through rough times? You want to kind of let's keep in that same order again?
Sure. My big thing I would say is remember that there are people that love you and people you can talk to. I really believe in talking to people and just letting people know how you're feeling, good or bad. Always just being able to discuss your feelings. And that's not necessarily to say go talk to somebody about everything, but even just go give somebody a hug and cry into their shoulder. Have that connection. It's really helped me through a lot, and I know that it's helped my friends and family through things as well. That's just the one thing I'd say. Have a connection with somebody that you trust and can talk to.
That's so important.
If I were talking to someone, I would address the stigma that's on feeling bad. A lot of people tend to think that feeling bad is, feeling terrible in life. These feelings are normal, and a lot of people think that it's not normal, there's a huge stigma to think that there must be something wrong, but it's important for everyone to know that these things are completely normal. Everyone feels them. If you don't feel them, then something's actually wrong with you, You will always feel these kinds of things in life, and, it takes time to get over it. It's fine for it to take time.
Yeah, like Sunny said, everybody goes through these different things and they're all different, but I think, and it's easier said than done, but just remember that throughout life you're going to have different challenges, and it's important to learn from those experiences that you have, and you could help other people throughout your life. And maybe somebody's going through the same thing that you had, but yeah, like I said, I love to grow through what you go through, and that's really important to me. And if you think of it as you're not going through something hard that's just knocking you down, but if you think I'm growing right now and I'm progressing, and I believe that you cannot be happy without progress, because if you didn't have different problems going through your life, then you would just be at a standstill. And honestly, I just think we grow through so much through our hard times, and we're stronger people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we talk about, in prevention, we talk about a lot of things that have to do with this. Like, your life's going to be full of challenges, and, there's going to be a half a dozen times in your life you're going to deal with some real depression, and some hard times are going to come, and life's a little bit of a roller coaster. So you're going through these hard times, and then all of a sudden life is easy and you're going downhill, and it's, a lot of fun. But there are going to be those tough times that come with every good time. There's going to be setbacks, and we've talked about that, and you guys have just conquered and gotten through it, and now you've got a platform to actually share those important things with those around you, and you're going to make a huge difference in what you're doing. So I'm really proud of all of you. Well, Stacy?
Absolutely. Yes.
What do you think is key about resilience? I mean, we talked about resilience, and there's a lot of things that kind of came up in the last question, like empathy. Having empathy for people and recognizing. I think with COVID, if we're just going to talk about the world right now, I think one of the things that stands out the most to me is people are going through a hard time, and it's not just kids, it's not just teenagers, it's not just all of us. I mean, it's the elderly that are, nobody dares go around them because we don't want to be the cause of them getting sick. And you're looking at this huge long table, and we're all social distancing so that we're keeping our distance. But if you struggled before COVID-19, what do you think that those people are going through now that the world's been flip-flopped on them? I think life that was hard before, if you were in a hard spot, it's definitely got to be amped up right now. So I think one of the things that we could do, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, is just being aware, watching people, and having empathy is to understand what they're going through and kind of feel it yourself. And I think if the world would spend a little bit more time focusing on others and what they're going through, I think we could make a real difference, because it is going to be hard for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are really good points. The self-awareness and the attention on other people. And sometimes we have to just let things go. And that is so hard to do. But sometimes we just, like when we're talking about having control or not having control, we just have to let it go. Sometimes we don't have control of that. And certainly COVID-19 has shown us that none of us are in control. And everybody's kind of guessing of it. How do we handle this? What do we do? And I was talking to somebody and I said that the interesting thing for me was that this didn't just affect Tooele or this didn't affect Utah. This was everybody. I said, when you talk about things not being fair in life, this affected everybody. Nobody got to have a graduation. Nobody got to do the big summer vacations that they had planned on. Everybody. And so all of us are being tested in our resiliency right now, and it's hard. And everybody takes it differently. And I remember talking to somebody at work, and she said, we have to remember that everybody's handling it differently. And it might be rolling off of somebody else's back, but somebody else might be really, really worried. Maybe they live with older people that are very susceptible to it in different situations like that. So it's just been interesting for all of us to live this life, something we've never, ever imagined. It's really interesting. So letting go, and whether that's letting go physically, letting go mentally, it's really difficult to do, but it's something that we need to practice, I guess. And then being positive. We gotta be positive. A few things that when I was looking into the resiliency, there's so much on resiliency, and I think it's fascinating to look at. There's a lot of brain science in all of it, and there's different theories about what works, what doesn't work, and what works for one doesn't work for another. But I really like the thought of being kind to yourself and knowing who you are and how you handle things, and that it's not the same for others. But to remember that we're not alone. And I love that you guys talked about turning to somebody for help. And sometimes we do. We just have to say, I surrender and I can't do this by myself. And so who's out there that can help me do this? And then earlier, the four of us talked about forgiveness and forgiving others and forgiving ourselves. And maybe that helps us move along and be a little bit more resilient. So some of those things are good little tools to have in our toolbox for resiliency. What do you think, John?
I love what Eden said about growing through it. And I think as I've talked to people and they've been so kind of, life's just been flipped on us, and there are people that want to get back out and start living again and everything. I really believe that as you focus on those things and caring about other people and worrying about somebody other than yourself, kind of taking the eye off yourself and looking at others, I think it'll get us through it. And I think that we'll grow through this, and someday when we look back at this, and we're talking about graduating, not having prom and all those things, man, you're going to have some amazing stories to tell. Think about it. And I grew up with grandparents that talked about the Great Depression and how they wouldn't waste anything. And I think, holy cow, they went through some tough times. Well, that's going to be your story. You're going to be telling having to fist fight people for toilet paper at Walmart. I mean, this is going to be a huge deal, and it's going to be remembered for a long time. But we're going to come out of it stronger, and we're going to be more prepared for the next whatever it is. I mean, we've been hit with earthquakes and fires and COVID. I mean, what next, right?
Oh, don't say that.
Come on, we're tough. Bring it on. We're ready.
We are. We're becoming a very resilient people.
We are, and I think it's going to be something that the people that have lived through it, you're going to see that difference in them, and you're going to know that they came through it stronger and better for what they've gone through. I mean, life throws you things that you honestly, some days I think you want to think, why do you think I can handle this, right? Because I don't want to handle it. It's not fun. I'm a fun person. I don't want to have to deal with this. But gosh, what an amazing thing. What an amazing platform for you guys to be able to do what you do for this coming year. And what an amazing year it's going to be. And like I said, the stories are going to go on and on. You've done the first pageant, I think the first pageant in history where we didn't have a live audience, right?
Yeah.
I think it's been a really crazy experience, and I think because, I don't know, a lot of people I have asked me, like, aren't you sad that there's not going to be a parade this year and different things like that, but our pageant director, Cami Perkins, is so good at making sure that we have things that make us feel special. Oh my gosh, okay, I have to tell you this. Right after the selection event, because it wasn't the whole shebang, she got a red carpet, like right out of the police department, which is where we had the selection event, and it just made us feel so special. And walking down in our gowns, and she had these confetti cannon things. It was so much fun, and I think she's just working really hard to make sure that we have a special year, and I've had a really good experience so far. It's not the average one, but it's definitely been a lot of fun, and we've grown through a lot of it.
Well, that is cool. She's never given me a red carpet or a confetti. We're going to have to talk after this.
Yeah, talk about resilient. That's resilience right there. Thinking outside of the box to make this selection event happen. Yeah, there were a lot of neat things that happened for you girls.
Mm-hmm.
And will continue to happen. And you're going to spend a lot of time on Zoom or I don't know what else, but you've had a lot of videos already that you've done.
We've had great opportunities. I mean, we got to do virtual recordings while reading library books to kids that maybe don't have a parent to read to them at night. They're working, and I think that's been amazing, just to have those unique opportunities that probably not other people will be able to have. It's been absolutely amazing, and I will admit the two girls that are here are absolutely amazing as well. They're like phenomenal human beings, and that's probably been one of the most exciting things for me too, is getting to meet them and hopefully continuing to get to know them. And I'm just very excited for this experience. The COVID-19 2020 Miss Twila City.
We need to have a mask on you on your picture out here in the hall.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so I am old for still living in my parents' house. I'm 23. And
it's not old.
I'm in my childhood bedroom still. And one thing, like coming back, it's really hard because it's the longest time I've been at home since going out to college when I was 18. So all of my friends that I graduated high school with have moved away. I don't really know anyone, so I'm just chilling at home. I'm like, what am I gonna do for this long of a time? And I must say, there are no jobs for me because I'm a violinist and all musicians have been furloughed, most till June 2021. So I literally have almost nothing to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss people, I miss being around people. And this experience has given me a really nice opportunity to meet some great people that I know I'll stay in touch with the rest of my life.
You are, like I said, the stories that you're going to be able to tell after this year, and it's going to be something amazing. And your kids and your grandkids are going to love to hear these things, and they're going to be like, "No way! There's no toilet paper. You can't get Clorox wipes."
I wouldn't believe it myself.
Will not take toilet paper for granted after that.
Definitely not. Bleach.
Yeah, it's the truth. It really is. Well, I am grateful for you guys being here. I think that they picked the right ladies because you three are amazing. And so I'm super lucky to be able to associate with you. And let's face it, they're probably going, well, we had to be stuck with John for an hour and record this. But I want to thank you guys for being part of this and caring about what we do in prevention. And for Stacy, Twila City is probably, gosh, I'm not going to cry talking about Twila City. Twila City is probably the favorite place I've ever lived. I've only lived here since 2001, but what an amazing community. You know, we have things available to us, to my kids, to my grandkids, things that, you know, in the big city you don't have available. And it is so nice to be able to live in a city this size and to see people in the grocery store, see people on the streets, and you know who they are, and how cool it is. And we're very lucky. Tooele City and the people that work here are amazing. You mentioned Cami Perkins. She's one of my favorite people on the planet. Sitting across from another favorite person on the planet, Stacy. And we have the Communities That Care. If you're not familiar with that, go to Tooele City's website. You can read more about Communities That Care. She highlighted them. There was a lot of things that she highlighted, but oh my gosh, doing suicide prevention training is free. They do it every month. The Guiding Good Choices, to have a city that cares enough to offer a free parenting class, how cool is that?
And you get a $25 gift
they
card.
pay you to come
So,
to it.
yeah.
They pay
So
you to.
win-win.
They finally offered it to me after I'd screwed up all my kids and it was too late. But I mean, how cool is that to have all of these things available in a town this size? And to know that the city cares about those things and they're willing to put a budget to it and to make sure that the residents are getting everything that's physically possible that they could give. And so please look at Tooele City's website. I think on Tooele City's website, can they see the royalty as well?
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm
they
sure it's
can.
probably on there. They have a Facebook page. You can check it out on Tooele City's Facebook page, and I know you can see the royalty there. But check out Communities That Care. And, you know, if you're going through a hard time and you are in a place where you wish you weren't right now, reach out to somebody. We talked earlier about connection. How cool is that to have a connection with people? To know that you've got that somebody in your corner. But if you don't feel like you have somebody in your corner, reach out to the Lifeline. Call 1-800-273-8255. And they are there 24/7, 365 days a year. And they will be that person for you. So if you don't feel like you have that connection, know that there are options. And if you're interested in hearing more about Life's Living, you can check us out at life'sworthlivingfoundation.org. We're on all platforms on social media. So check us out. And if you think that this is something you'd like to share, please share it. Share this podcast and let others hear, because sometimes it's hearing the amazing things that are going on in other communities that inspire you to make a difference where you live. And so whatever brought you here, we're glad that you're here tonight, and we're glad that you spent an hour with us. And thank you for being here. Until next week, we'll see you then. Take care.